in case it occurs.
All those in favor? 6 p.m., August 16th, 2022. A call to order the Oconee County Council meeting. As a reminder, the public has 2 times they can speak in council meeting. The first is public comments, and the second is public hearing if there's one scheduled. Other than those 2 times, the public should remain silent during the council meeting. Anyone making a disturbance during the meeting will be asked to leave council chambers for the remainder of the meeting. Also, as a reminder, please ensure that you follow the county's legal prohibition against engaging in partisan political activity, including speech, during this meeting. This meeting is not called for that activity, and such activity is prohibited by law. A moment of silence, please. Drew?
Yes, sir. Pray with me if you'd like to. Dear Father, thank you. Well, thank you for our lives. You are a giver of life and the sustainer of our lives, and let us not take that for granted. Let us not take this day for granted, but be appreciative of every moment that we have to live and engage in each moment mindfully, and not assume that we have tomorrow. But only by your will do we live and move and have our being. I'm thankful for our council members who serve, thankful for the citizens who came out to participate. Thank you for the work that we have to do. Pray that you give us guidance, that we do that work well, out of love and goodwill. You give us your wisdom, and that this meeting would go according to your plan. I hope my prayer is in your name. Amen.
Mr. Davis, will you lead us to the pledge, please?
Please stand. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Is there a motion to approve the July 19th, 2022 regular minutes?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Vote is 4-0.
Is there a motion to approve the July 22nd, 2022 special minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
The vote is 4-0.
Mr. Root?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. I have a few. The first matters, I need a motion to amend the agenda to add a board and commission appointment for the Planning Commission. We received a notice of resignation for your district, in fact, this morning, and I believe you have that set up for an appointment. So I need a motion to amend the agenda, the exigent circumstance, of course, being that we're vacant that seat by way of that resignation this morning. I'll take the other 2 matters if you want to do that motion first.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
The vote is 4-0.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The second matter relates to ordinance number 2022-14. Just wanted to note that the agreement that's attached to this is the peer property, or the caption is titled specifically, ordinance granting certain easement rights or encroachment rights to core SVA Seneca Edinburgh. You'll note on the agreement, and the public can note, that there's first and attached a clean version of the agreement, And then right after that is a version of the agreement that has some changes to paragraphs 4 and 6. Working with our planning director, I think he's left, but Mr. Coley and the opposing council, we decided to, work for some additional revisions to this agreement after second reading that made it more in the county's favor. Those are blue lighted or red line, what have you. Essentially in paragraph 4, just noting that the county, they'll have to get the county's consent if they do any work that have a material effect on the easement area. And then in paragraph 6, it makes clear that if the county has to resort to self-help to maintain the property that the company would otherwise have to maintain, that it would be clear that they would pay the county back for that self-help, and it also allows them a notice and cure period. Do not need an amendment for this, or a motion to amend, because the ordinance allows for the substantially same form of that agreement to be approved, and that is a substantially same form. These are amendments to benefit the county. So that's just for notice. The other matter relates to ordinance 22, or 2022-20. With that one, we do not yet have the agreement attached. Of course, it's not required to be divulged until after it's signed, really, but we try to get it as soon as we can. This is a matter with Casto, and they are converting, as it's noted within the ordinance, their fee in lieu of tax agreement to a public infrastructure rebate agreement. They're receiving special source revenue credits. I can go into all that, but it's probably not the time. And as well as their fee in lieu of taxes. So when properties are in a multi-county industrial park, they're not subject to ad valorem taxes anymore, but they're subject to fee in the same amount as those taxes unless you have a fee agreement that reduces it. They had a fee agreement that reduced it. They're going to step outside of that fee agreement but still receive the credits against the fees. I think the primary purpose is so that they could transfer portions of that property to third parties but still be reimbursed for their infrastructure. So I wanted to give the general contours of the agreement. I had some revisions that I made and I've sent to the other attorneys and I haven't gotten it back yet, so that's why it's not attached yet. So again, that was just for information only, and those are only 3 things I had. Thank you.
Ms. Brock?
I have nothing this evening. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Public comment session. As a reminder, you have 4 minutes to speak. When 1 minute's remaining, I'll hold up a yellow sign. When time's up, I'll hold up a red sign. Mr. Tom Marvitz.
Thank you. For the record, I'm Tom Markovich. I wanted to speak tonight about this county task force on agriculture. Number one, I want to make it absolutely clear, I'm in favor of this. I think it's a smart thing to be doing. And but I also worry about task force sometimes skewing off onto misdirection. And part of my concern with this is it's just the concept of losing agricultural land and how we've lost it here in Oconee County over many years, not just the last 20 years. First off, there's more land, more agricultural land under those lakes for energy production and flood control than probably any other use in this county. And the other thing is that over the years, is from an economic standpoint, a lot of things have changed. I know a lot of people here don't remember the days of cotton. Cotton used to be the primary agricultural crop in this county. And that all after, a lot of farmers decided they didn't want to do it anymore. It was hard work. And they didn't want their children to have to do it. They wanted to do everything they could to send their kids to college, and so that they wouldn't have to chop cotton. And so a lot of people transitioned out of farming on their own. And when the mills came to Oconee County, a lot of farmers went to work in the mills because it was a better way of life than having to worry about the next drought or the next flood or the next whatever. Agriculture is tough, and farmers have had to make choices as long as we've been farming about whether or not they were going to stay in the business, whether or not they could afford to stay in the business. My concern is that if we're talking about the preservation of agricultural land, what kind of controls are going to be tried to be put into place to preserve that? Is it going to take choices away from farmers? Because I would hate to see that ever happen. I mean, they've chosen to be in this profession. They can choose not to be in this profession. It could be that one day some developer comes along and wants to build some houses, and maybe he makes that farmer a better offer on that piece of property than he can ever imagine in any other way of producing an income off that property. I worry about these things. I worry about housing taking a hit. I worry about housing becoming the focus of being the one that's actually using up all this land. When we know, in fact, most of the land has been used up for energy production and many other things. And so, anyway, that's it. That's all I got. Like I said, I'm in favor of this. I just want to see it go in the right direction. Thank you.
Councilmember comment, and I'll start. I get two types of complaints. One is about roads and one is about stormwater from new construction during rain. Stormwater from new construction has been washing into other citizens' properties, our roads, and our lakes. DHEC has regulations for stormwater for new construction. DHEC has no way to enforce these regulations. I make a motion that the staff be directed to prepare a proposed stormwater ordinance that puts teeth in place for non-compliance with DHEC regulations, and that staff report directly back to council with the proposed stormwater ordinance.
Second the motion for discussion.
Any discussion?
Mr. Chair, just after the Planning and Economic Development Committee, I was chatting with Mr. Coley, our planning director, and he mentioned that DHEC has, well, and David, you may have a different opinion of this, has preempted that area of enforcement. And I don't think he knew that you were going to make that motion, but David, could you speak to the extent to which the county may regulate and enforce stormwater issues?
I believe, and I'll need to talk with James, and it's been a while since I've looked back, because I was concerned that we were going to be required to have one based on population a few years ago. So that's really the last time I looked at it. But it's not full field preemption. I do know that they have, certainly preempted the field to the extent that we can't do anything to the contrary, or certainly anything that would overlap. I know that there are, like other jurisdictions, certainly have stormwater mitigation plans in place that fill in the gaps. How that looks, the particular contours of that, I'm going to have to get with Mr. Coley, because I know he has some expertise in it. So glad to take this motion and dig into it as best I can say.
Any other discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Vote is 4-0.
Any other council member comment? If not, we'll move on to public hearings. A public hearing to receive community feedback with subsequent council discussion regarding the proposed abandonment of a portion of Thornburg Road, TU-67, and a portion of Dinky Lane Road, TU-34. We've had several people sign up for the public hearing. Let's see, Rush Thrift.
Thank you guys for this opportunity to speak to you tonight and to listen to some comments on what you're considering. My name is Rush Thrift. I'm here tonight to offer some comment and some documents for your review in support of your consideration to abandon or close portions of the mentioned roads, Thornburg Road and the Dinky Line Road. And to keep it simple and just how I've always referred to it, I call both of these roads together the Dinky Line Road. So one of the reasons I'm here tonight is by virtue of my late grandfather, Glenn Thrift, also on behalf of our company, Thrift Group. Through my grandfather's estate and through that company, Our family owns a portion of the land which adjuts this road. In fact, we own the majority of the land which adjuts both sides of this road. In October of last year, together with the other property owners who adjoin this road, we submitted a request to Mr. Kyle Reed of Oconee County Roads and Bridges to have the road looked at for closure for the abandonment. I would note that the other property owner at the time was Mr. Adam Smith. He has since sold some of his property which adjoins the road. It's my understanding that the purchaser of that property is here tonight and would also voice their support for the closure of this road. For a little bit more background and my experience to speak on this, our family has owned this land longer than I have been alive. Our family also engages in road construction. We have for many generations. Based on this, I think I have a pretty good background to offer some comments on what it takes to weigh the consideration of closing a road like this. The request that we submitted last year was based on a review of many of these factors. I'll quickly summarize them. I'm also going to submit some additional evidence that was not in that letter for your consideration. A summary statement of this road is it's less than 1 mile long and it's a gravel road. It's currently maintained by Oconee County at the county's and the taxpayers' expense. The main consideration, I would think, in considering whether to close a road like this is to weigh the benefits for the county to keep a road open like this against the benefits of closing the road. I would submit to you guys that there is little benefit in keeping this road open and that it is largely more beneficial to the county and the public in general to abandon and close this road. The road itself does not directly serve any homes. It acts only as a cut-through road. By this, I mean that there are no homes within the main portion of the road that is to be closed. There are some homes on each end of the road with driveways on other roads which connect to this, but this road does not serve as a main access road to any of these homes. Based on my family's years of experience in owning the land and based on the opinions of other landowners that I have spoken to, the majority of the traffic that uses this road does not do so with a lawful use of the road. Rather, they use it for activities such as four-wheeling, holding late-night parties to consume alcohol, evidenced by routinely finding the leftover beer cans on the road, and to dump trash illegally and other debris on the road routinely. These types of activities cause many issues, not only for the adjacent property owners, but also for the county, which has to respond to these issues and has to foot the cost to clean up and maintain the road. I would submit to you guys that the activities mentioned, especially the illegal dumping of trash, has become a very increasing problem of late. I will submit a exhibit marked Exhibit A to you of photos taken over the years that show this trash. 2 photos I bring to your attention are the first 2 photos that you'll see. The first is some furniture which was dumped about 2 weeks ago in the middle of the road. A visit yesterday showed that someone had lit all of that furniture on fire and shoved it, I guess, to the side of the road and then littered with beer cans around that. I would urge anybody that has any questions about the amount of trash and the effect that this is having on the county to reach out to either Oconee County Roads and Bridges or to the Sheriff's Office, and I believe you'll hear ample evidence to support what I'm stating to you. In the process of looking into how to have this road closed, one of the things that I've heard in casual conversations is that there is a concern that this road might be needed to serve as a detour route to someone who might be on the Jenkins Bridge side of this road. And just for reference, I'm going to describe a couple of details, but I will submit some detailed maps to you guys that show each location I'm about to mention. But the suggested detour route that I have heard would use this Dinky line road to cut from Jenkins Bridge Road to Pickens Road and access US 23. Looking at possible routes that can be used as a detour, I would submit to you guys that for several reasons this is not a plausible detour. It is also not the only detour available in the event that there is a closure on US 123. And the first thing I would point out that for there to even be an event that the Dinky line need to be used as a detour, the closure on 123 would have to be in a very specific and limited part of 123, and that is between Pickens Road and Jenkins Bridge Road, a stretch of road that is less than 1 mile. If there was a closure anywhere else on 123, the Dinky line would not be able to serve as an effective detour. Another point to consider is the condition of this road. It is a gravel road. In many spots, it is not wide enough for vehicles to effectively pass each other. In my due diligence and in conversations that I've had with many different agencies, it's my understanding that an ambulance or other emergency vehicle would in fact not choose to use this road and would relay to you that the closure would not affect their planning. This comes from speaking with personnel at the county, the sheriff's office, and SCDOT, and it's my belief that they have shared some of those opinions with some council members, but I'll let them speak for themselves. Speaking of the detour, I went out along with some individuals from our construction company to look at some possible detour routes that might be usable or in question. And if you measure from the Jenkins Bridge Road side and you do not use the Dinky Line Road, there exist 3 plausible routes to get from the Dinky Line Road measuring to Prisma Hospital, effectively downtown Seneca. I'll submit a exhibit to you guys detailing each of those routes, but the main detour would not even add an extra mile to the route that you might take. The secondary detour would add approximately 3 miles. And I would submit to you that on each of these detours, you do not use any gravel roads and you use all paved state-maintained roads. So that leaves you with a closure of this road still having 3 possible routes to effectively go around any issues that may exist on US 123. I will also point out that in the other direction of the location that might be in question is another hospital equidistant as Prisma is, which is the Stevens County Hospital, and no route to that hospital would be affected by the closure of the Dinky Line Road. I said I would let many of the agencies I spoke to you offer their opinions. One who cannot be here tonight, and I'm going to submit as Exhibits T, is SCDOT, and reaching out to them. I have an email from a engineer at the district level which states that they have reviewed this road. They would have no objection to its closure, and it would not be something that they considered in the maintenance of state roads or detours. The last exhibit I'll submit to you, I've marked as Exhibit D, which is our original request to close this road, and it details our property as well as some other property owners who joined us in the letter requesting that it be closed. So with that, I thank each of you for your time and your consideration of this request. Additionally, I just want to thank you for your time as council members in general and serving, and I thank you for that. Mr. Chair, if it's okay to approach, I'll submit a copy of my statement as well as exhibits, or to the county attorney.
Copies for everybody.
Yes, well, that's one copy. I have a secondary copy, if that's okay.
Clerk to put in the record.
Absolutely. You got 2 copies of it.
All right, thanks.
Thank you. Thank you.
Let's see. Adam Smith.
Thank y'all for having me. This is just real quick. Rush pretty much went over everything. As a former landowner on Dinky Line Road, Thornburg Road, I decided to sell the property. One of the reasons I decided to sell the property was just because of the trash. And we done some clearing on some land that I had there. And while I was working there, I had my equipment there. I was almost kind of worried to leave my equipment there overnight because of so much traffic in and out of that road. I had a lot of people riding through my property. I actually had a couple of different run-ins with people over there that have no business there, don't live in the area. I live about a mile or so from Dinky Line Road. So even though I have sold, I've sold that piece of property. I guess you'll hear from Mr. Baker bought one side of it. But even though with selling it, I feel like the road should be closed. I feel like the county's kind of wasting money keeping it up for the type of people that use that road. The amount of trash that's thrown out there, you don't, while I own that property, you don't cut through that road without that road being tore up from people spinning, four-wheeling, whatever you want to call it. So that's all I got. I didn't, like I said, Rush covered most of it, but anyway, thank you for your time.
Lee Baker.
Thank you. Let me speak to you guys tonight. I bought the property from Adam Smith. I own the half behind the other Smiths. I tied to their property and they tied to the Thrifts on the other end. And I bought it talking to Adam. the proposal was already made, I believe, before I even purchased the property. The conversation was being had to close this property. That's the reason why I bought it. Not to leave it open, because I've been out there several times. I've worked out there. I've cut a lot of fenced property lines in there. When I first went out there, had gunshots shot through there in the daytime. I picked up that entire property on both sides. The other side that Adam, I believe, sold. Came back the next week. Someone's dumped rocks in my driveway. I can't even get in to my property. There's been, I heard a couch on fire, numerous things out there, right? I've got cameras on my property. People walk through it. I had the gate taken down. People drive through it. It's been a little bit of a eye opener, I guess, you know, because I don't go to the far end of Jenkins Bridge, to be honest, but I have gone down there before. My plan was to buy and build there. If we don't close the road, it hurts me to build there. Because to what Adam kind of said too is it's got to a point now where I just wouldn't feel like it'd be a good place to build, so I wouldn't feel safe with my stuff out there, or what could happen to somebody out there. It gets pretty at night out there. I've been out there before, locking my gate coming out of there, and there are some narrow parts on that road. I have my trailer with me generally, my side-by-side or some equipment to work out there, and people come by there 50 miles an hour on side-by-side sliding around. The property below me, I believe Adam owned both those. We split it. Someone else has bought that. I've seen trucks down there. Talk to people about throwing litter out there, and you come back and to make their point, I guess they leave all 20 beer cans on the side of the road. So it's just gotten to be where it's real nice. It's beautiful out there. I'm not from here. I've been here a couple of years now. I'm talking to people I work with that use that road in the past. It didn't used to be that way. They drove through there a lot, and they used that. It was a cutoff through there because it was a little country section through there. But now it's gotten to be where to me it's a drug paraphernalia dumping ground, which is really too bad for all that beautiful country out there. So that's what I have. Appreciate your time. Thank you.
Tracy Smith. Tracy Smith.
Thank you. Just as they said before, first of all, my name's Tracy Smith, in case anybody didn't know, but there's just a couple of additional things that I wanted to touch on. I am here as a property owner tonight. My property line is the actual Dinky line. It comes from Pickens Road down the Dinky line. That whole entire corner is my home. As a former law enforcement agent, I worked that area. We had several different incidents that we would have to respond to out there. The increase in criminal activity, suspicious activity, we've had people knock on our door in the middle of the night where they've been ran off the road with their headlights facing straight in the air. We've had gunshots, we've had people that they have located that have been missing, that were out in the woods. It's a beautiful place to live, but that cut through has actually created more of a problem for the people that live there and a convenience for the people that travel it. There are four-wheelers that race up and down the road. We have continued, and I say we because there are several residents on my road that have had personal property damage from the people utilizing the Dinky Line Road. Instead of stopping at the stop sign at the end of the Dinky Line and Pickens Road, they do not stop at the stop sign. They've driven through our yards, they've damaged our property, they've taken out my mailbox multiple times. My concern is that I have children and I have young drivers that pull in and out of my driveway. My driveway happens to be a blind driveway just before the Dinky Line. We have had multiple incidents where we have had near collisions with vehicles that are coming off of the Dinky Line. And this is throughout the day, but at night it's even more dangerous. Several without headlights, several without tags, and it's just causing more work than it's worth. Couple of quick things. We've done what we can. We've worked really well with the sheriff's office. They have increased patrol. The South Carolina Highway Patrol has also added us to their extra patrol. They have, their presence has really created a nice evening every now and then when we see them out there. The traffic definitely slows down and we don't have the amount of trouble or people cutting donuts, throwing gravel, spitting out, and just tearing up personal property. There's a couple of quick things that I do want to point out. they brought up the fact that it is a county-maintained road. One of the things that we have witnessed and we have reported is that they will actually steal the gravel off of the road. We watch our roads and, they'll come out and grade it and they take excellent care of it as best as they can. But they will come out and they will actually steal the gravel off of the road. Vehicles are not properly tagged that are utilizing this road as a cut through. You can basically, by utilizing the Pickens Road to Dinky line, you can make it from one end of Toccoa Highway all the way almost to the line if you cut through the neighborhood. And we've had several patrol officers that have gotten out with multiple different instances where people don't have proper tags, not valid licenses. The increase in patrol has resulted in a tremendous amount of tickets that have been written in that area, and for that, we're super grateful. Unfortunately, the litter, the gravel being stolen, the burnouts in the road, it just keeps continuing. We'll have a lull in the action, and then it shows back up again, usually on Friday night. So while I respect the fact that it is definitely a historical part of our county, and I'm all for that, I've gotten to learn a lot when I went and talked to my neighbors to see who was in favor and who was not in favor for closing it. It was part of the original railroad. That's where they staged everything when they built the railroad, and for that, I'm very grateful, and I hate to see that we may end up, that we do need to close it. But with that being said, it's not the same Dinky line that it used to be. Mr. Rush Thrift, he hit on all of the most valid and most important points. I do have pictures, if you would like me to submit them, I can give them to the clerk, of damage and litter and the things that I see on a daily basis coming home. Other than that, I just want to thank you guys for hearing us out, and I know it's really important to a lot of people. Oh, I do have one more thing. I did submit it to Kyle, and I don't know if it made it on record or not, but I do have we have a lot of elderly residents that live on my road, and they're unable to come tonight. I do have a few of them that I have their contact name, information, their signature, and their emails. They wanted to vote in favor of closing it. So with that, I just want to say thank you.
Okay, so we said with subsequent council discussion.
Yes, sir. I don't know whether I should be doing this or Kyle should step up and speak.
And I do have a couple more emailed responses to it, but if you'd like for me to speak about talking with Mr. Hampton.
Yeah, Mr. Hampton, if
Yes.
you would.
So Mr. Hampton has a 52-year-old special needs son who is very dependent on care, has seizures, that kind of thing. So his concern was emergency access to his property, which is on the Jenkins Bridge side of the road coming off of Thornburg. So his concern was emergency vehicle access to his son. From what I've understood from emergency personnel, they wouldn't, so to speak, use that route. But if that was the only route available, then obviously they would get to him somehow, some way. So that was the main concern from him, that his son be taken care of. The other concern is he's an elderly gentleman, I believe he said in his 70s, and his concern was being able to navigate 123 with the speed on 123. Whenever he gets on, he can go back toward Westminster, back toward Toccoa, without getting on 123. Again, there are other routes, but that's the way he goes. That's the route that he takes. So that was his two main concerns of having that road shut down. That covered most of what you.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
You did a better job than I did. Could have.
All right, and I've got, like I said, a couple of folks sending emails and one other comment. Mr. Gabriel Haney sent an email saying, and again, this is from Gabriel Haney. Good evening, this is Gabriel Haney speaking. I live in the community of the Dinky Line Dirt Road. I hate to hear that you all are even considering closing this vital road to our community. We use this access road for many things, one of which includes emergency access during emergencies. I work in the county as an emergency responder on multiple levels. During an emergency, this road can and has been used for means of egress and access around accidents and other emergency situations. By closing this road, you are cutting off that opportunity for us in the community to use and the community to use that to our advantage. Also, there are multiple farms in the area and multiple farmers use that access road to stay off of the main highway with their farm equipment. It's much safer for the farmer and much safer for the folks traveling on 123 at 55 miles per hour. At 55 plus miles per hour. That road has been there a long time and has been used by the community with no issue up until now. As for the trash goes on that road, it's no different than any other road in this county. I travel that road almost daily, and it is no different than any other dirt road or even main roads in our county. The litter is no doubt an issue, but closing roads is not the answer. If we close this road, then what's next? Are we going to close all side roads? Another email from Mr. Tim Barron. I am opposed of the Dinky Line Road being closed. I live at 132 Pickens Road and have been a resident of this road all my life that connects to the Dinky Line. The Dinky Line Road was used as a supply line when they was building the main railroad where Toccoa Highway is now. So I don't want our history of our area to be destroyed like so much other history has been destroyed. The Dinky Line serves access for the seniors to go to Chaga Store and to Jenkins Bridge Road fishing. Also, farmers use this road to haul hay to other places to Pickens Road. There are no more trash on this road than any other side roads or main roads. Also, people ride horses on Dinky Line Road also. Thanks for listening to my concerns. Please keep Dinky Line open. Tim Barron and family, 132 Pickens Road, Westminster. And one more comment. And this gentleman did not have access to email. I know this is odd, but he didn't have access to email and no way to be here tonight, so. And this is Grawl D. Haney Sr. He gave me comments. I read them back to me. He said this is what he wanted to say. Live at the beginning of Jenkins Bridge. Older driver and he goes to town that way. Runs with a tractor and equipment to Weldon Road. Can't see shutting down when it's been used for years. And that's all I've got.
Mr. Reed,
Yes, sir.
what was your popular vote on that? I mean, the survey y'all conducted for us, the people that wanted it closed and didn't want it closed, what was the count on that?
I'm trying to remember exactly. I don't have that. I figured I would bring that back with the staff report of findings whenever we did have an action meeting. But I do not have that right now. It was more for leaving it open than closing, but I can't remember the number.
Well, I have these numbers here, and I'm not gonna say that they're right, but I have 13 that want it open, and then I got 11 that want it closed. Does that sound
Yes.
close?
Yes. It was right there.
I mean, it was almost.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yes, the majority of the residents along the road did want it closed, but the surrounding communities feel was leaving it open. And we did contact all those folks that did call us and gave them, the opportunity to comment tonight or to comment by email. Again, the one gentleman didn't have access.
One more question.
Yes, sir.
Let's say that we're closing that road. That's not the final answer, is it?
No, yes, sir. Y'all would just consent to the abandonment, and the folks petitioning would have to carry that through to the courts and provide. Mr. Root would probably be able to give better synopsis of the process, but basically they would have to. It's a friendly lawsuit. They would provide notice to the public because it is a public road. All the people along the road would be served that the road was going through the courts for abandonment and given the opportunity to come. And then it would be heard before a judge, and the judge would make that decision of whether the road is abandoned or not. Council accepts, but they cannot abandon. That has to be through the courts.
That's what What did you tell them?
No, that's right, yeah. And the court, so usually we have a transportation committee recommendation to county council. I draft a resolution and y'all vote on it. Y'all ask for a special public hearing on this one because it's a little bit unique, so this is an intermediate step. We'll have a resolution on the September 6th meeting. That'll include Kyle's staff report. If y'all vote favorably on that, then the petitioning party, whoever wants to bring it through the Court of Common Pleas, bring the suit, will do that. The judge will ultimately make a decision by statute that has to be in the best interest of all concerned. So usually if they're hotly contested, I don't want to say every time, the judge is not going to be in favor of it. But I don't have a crystal ball on that. You know, it's going to be obviously in the judge's province, and just like Kyle said, the judge makes the final determination.
Yes, sir.
So I got contacted by, the majority of people were in favor of it being closed, and I had about 13 physically contact me, and I had 4 that was not in favor of it. In the 4, the majority of it was joyriding. It's just a good place to ride through. And growing up here, I understand the gravel roads and stuff, but most of them lead to the river, or they lead to certain areas that has public access to it. So it's not, as a shortcut road, I don't see that as a shortcut. I've cut through every other road back through there. It's been probably about an hour trying to understand what they're talking about. And, from living where I live, I drive a tractor on a 55-mile-an-hour road to get diesel, twice, a good bit of time. So, as in that, our area is used to tractors being on the road. I'd rather drive my tractor on Highway 24 than I would a mile on a dirt road. So I didn't get the one about the hay hauling through there, just because from a standpoint on, if you're hauling hay on a tractor down through the way that road is, you probably lose half the hay from one side of Dinky line to the other. Again, I'm not the one hauling hay, but when I moved hay around, it's a whole lot better to be on a paved road than it is on a gravel road. So from an emergency standpoint, to me, we're always going to take the paved road there. Accident scenes can happen, but if it's just about the accident scene, then we need to start making a lot of different roads through this county to go around it. And like I said, it's a little bit about a mile, but for me to take that gravel road as a detour around that, majority of accidents, there is a specific way around, a very slow way around, but emergency services finds its way. Having the hospital on the other side, to me, takes that out of the equation, period, because that area, to me, it's about 50-50 on which hospital you're going to, depending on probably what, more likely it's dependent on your insurance than it is the hospital that you go to. I think anytime we close down a road, there's always going to be people that are used to driving on the road and they grew up on that road. But at the same time, we have to look at the use on that road and the property owners around that road. And not one single property owner wants to keep it open. And for specific reasons, I live on Cedar Lane Road, and I get enough trash. I got a bumper that somebody threw off in our pasture yesterday. It happens all the time, but especially on dirt roads, animals, things like that. So, to me, it's really not a question when I have the majority of people that I see in favor of it, and there's other accesses around. So,
Dinky line has had a lot of trash. It is one of our most called in roads for stuff being in the road, dumped in the road.
I've looked at the reports on the sheriff's side of things too, that there's been multiple causes in there. So hopefully, by closing that off, will result in less calls to that specific area for, anytime that you can lower an area of crime, whether it's abandoning a house or a dead-end road that's not used anymore, or only used for specific purposes, you're benefiting the property owners, not just on that road, but around that road. So I think the benefits far outweigh the negativity that I'm understanding. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
There's one thing that me and you both forgot, and Mr. Davis brought it up about the
The
hospitals.
hospital, yes, sir. Yeah. And Mr. Hampton did say, and I thank you for that. Mr. Hampton did say that he prefers Oconee to Stevens
He
County
didn't like-
Hospital. He's
the
been
County
to
Hospital.
both, and his son, he did not care for the care, not knocking Stevens County Hospital. That's his opinion, obviously. But he did not, he would prefer his son go to Oconee.
And I speak on emergencies. That's what I'm saying. If I get in an accident, I hope they take me to the closest one.
Right. And like I said, I just following up on what another concern he had as far as, because we did have the discussion about the other accesses, other ways to get him to the hospital, all those things, just to make sure that everything was kind of touched on, that he had a concern about. But he did have that concern, and I did forget to mention that.
Any other discussion? Ms. Root, there's no action that needs to be taken tonight.
Unless y'all told me to hit the brakes, and which you could do now by motion and not proceed with the resolution to consent to the abandonment, I'll have a resolution for the meeting on the 6th of September.
We can vote on the 6th.
You'll vote on the 6th, yeah?
Yes, ma'am.
So I close this public hearing.
Thank y'all.
Let's see, public hearing ordinance 2022-14, an ordinance granting certain easement and/or encroachment rights to Core SBA Seneca in Thornburg LLC or its affiliate at or near property commonly referred to as the pier. Let me check. I don't believe anyone signed up for public hearing. So no one signed up for public hearing. I close public hearing 2022-14. Public hearing ordinance 2022-16, ordinance amending the Oconee County Conservation Bank ordinance OC Code Section 2-398 through 2-409. Let's see. Emily Hitchcock.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the council. My name is Emily Hitchcock, and I live in Mountain West. I am the chair of the Oconee County Conservation Bank Board, and I'm here today to speak for the board and urge you to adopt this ordinance. I know Mr. Root can answer all of your legal questions, but if you have any questions about what the board was thinking or why they wanted a certain change, I will do my very best to answer it. Thank you.
See, no one else has signed up for that public hearing, so I'll close public hearing 2022-16. Public hearing ordinance 2022-17, an ordinance authorizing the execution and delivery of an amendment to the lease agreement between Oconee County as lessor and the United States of America / Department of Agriculture as lessee in relation to certain premises located at 301 West South Broad Street, Walhalla, South Carolina. No one has signed up for public comment, public hearing. I close public hearing 2022-17. Public hearing ordinance 2022-19, ordinance to amend and supplement ordinance 2022-01, which established the budget for Oconee County and provided for the levy of taxes for ordinary county purposes, for the Tri-County Technical College Special Revenue Fund, for the Emergency Service Protection Special Revenue Fund, for the Road Maintenance Special Revenue Fund, for the Bridge and Culvert Capital Project Fund, for the Economic Development Capital Project Fund, for the Parks, Recreation, and Tourism Capital Projects Fund, for the Debt Service Fund, for the Victim Services Special Revenue Funds, for the Capital Vehicle / Equipment Fund, all in Oconee County for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2022 and ending June 30th, 2023, in order to effect a supplemental appropriation and other matters related thereto. Let's see, Mr. Mickey Haney.
Mr. Reed?
Yes, sir.
Like there's 6 there.
All right, my name is Mick Manning. So I'm here to talk about the ordinance for, again, we're asking for additional funds for the airport. And I have to say, I've heard Mr. Hart in the past state, I do not speak your language. Mr. Hart, I must say that you actually speak and have common sense and logical budgeting practices. These others don't seem to listen to that. You have brought up something that the majority of the governing bodies did not adhere to. And that was, once a budget is passed, to adhere to it. If you need additional funds, find it. You were correct by asking them to look into the budget for the funds. As soon as I heard that, it didn't take me long to think of the cabinet shop, which is $250,000 for renovations that did not happen. We also sold more Jet Aid fuel than we had anticipated. That gave us additional $350,000. Those right there are two areas that we can pull from, and I'm sure there's many more of additional revenue. If you go through the departments and look at leftover revenue during budget time, you see it. The other thing that did not make sense to me, the common man, is why would you close a business during peak season? It's peak revenue season. If you look at the revenue that's brought in, the fuel sales and all, and what time they're made, closing during that time does not make sense. So I must ask, how much of a reduction will it be? Have we ran those numbers? Just on fuel cell alone, off the estimates, if it was to be a 60% reduction, that's $478,000 of lost revenue. If it was just to be a 40% reduction, that's $319,000 in lost revenue on fuel. So we must ask ourselves, why can we not find the funds for the grant match? And it is a match. I've heard several people state, well, this is federally funded for paving. No, it's a match in the current budget. Why can we not look in that current budget and find those funds? Why must we always ask for additional money instead of looking in our own budgets first? Why are we closing the airport during a peak revenue generating season? Football season. People flying in for the Clemson games. A lot more flights. I believe 2 years ago that was brought up about the amount of flights that came in. If we close them during the peak revenue season, what opportunities are we losing? What opportunities of exposure to outside businessmen, entrepreneurs, are we losing? And what business are we losing in Oconee County? Because those planes are going to be flying into Anderson. Why do we want to push that over to Anderson? I recommend finding the funds for the grant match in the current budget. It shouldn't be hard to find. I also recommend scheduling the airport runway paving outside of the peak season. It doesn't make sense when a government body does not act like a business. And I see it time and time again where this governing body thinks that every bit of funds that comes into it should be spent, and sometimes recklessly. And I think this is a good example of that. Mr. Hart, I appreciate you.
Thank you.
I appreciate all that you do for the county. I know you do not have a CPA degree, but you hit the nail on the head in what you stated. Thank you.
I close, excuse me, I close public hearing 2022-19. Third reading of final ordinance. Ordinance 2022-14, an ordinance granting certain easement and/or encroachment rights to Core SBA Seneca Edinburgh LLC or its affiliate at or near property commonly referred to as the pier. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
The vote is 4-0.
Excuse me, ordinance 2022-16, an ordinance amending the Coney County Conservation Bank OC Code Sections 2-398 through 2409. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
The vote is 4-0.
Ordinance 2022-17, an ordinance authorizing the execution and delivery of amendment to the lease agreement between Oconee County as lessor and the United States of America Department of Agriculture as lessee in relation to certain premises located at 301 West South Broad Street, Walhalla, South Carolina. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
The vote is 4-0.
Ordinance 2022-19, an ordinance to amend and supplement ordinance 2022-01, which established the budget for Oconee County and provided for the levy of taxes for ordinary county purposes, the Tri-County Technical College Special Revenue Fund, for the Emergency Services Protection Special Revenue Fund, for the Road Maintenance Special Revenue Fund, for the Bridge and Culvert Capital Project Fund, for the Economic Development Capital Project Fund, for the Parks, Recreation, and Tourism Capital Projects Fund, for the Debt Service Fund, for the Victim Services Special Revenue Funds, for the Capital Vehicle Equipment Fund, all in Oconee County for fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2022, and ending June 30th, 2023, in order to effect a supplemental appropriation and other matters related thereto. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
Yeah, just one second. Speaking of the runway, the only reason why we have an airport is for Clemson. Clemson's not always the peak season. Based on what I have seen and discussions with the Aeronautics Commission, there's many reasons to move ahead with this project that I'm definitely in favor of. Will we buy the amount of jet fuel that we had last year? No, that's not our top revenue source there. The airport is another tool in our belt, which is a benefit. I don't fly in and out of it. I don't have a plane. The only time that I've ever used it is to look at county council projects that have occurred out there. So, I believe in, the recommendations from our staff, and I believe that, to me, these grants come across, and to take advantage of them, is a great thing. To have a failure in the runway that would result in a unknown closure, and having to come up with the funds to repair it or possibly redo it without an FAA grant, would cost, as you see with the grant, over $7 million to the citizens. So to me, this project and the time manner of it is what we see as the correct directive. So I'll stand by my vote for that.
It's my understanding that the paving, the curing has to occur before winter.
That is correct, Mr. Chairman.
And I also understand that if we don't do this repaving, that we could possibly be shut down by the FAA.
That is also correct, Mr. Chairman.
And the airport is a tool for economic development. No one up here owns a plane. I've never flown out of that airport, never used it. But it brings in industry. We have several industries in Oconee County that fly their corporate jets in and out. We have visitors looking at economic development that fly into our airport. So we've got to maintain the airport. Yes, there are people that own planes. Those planes don't cost as much as some of your trucks. I know that because I've got a friend that owns one. Bought it for $40,000. But it's for economic development. And we've got to do it, and we can't do it in the wintertime. We've got to do it now. And it's either FAA money or it's money out of y'all's pocket. Any other discussion?
And there is no good time to shut down a runway. I mean, I will totally agree with the statement that it's not a good time. There is no good time.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, Oconee
Yes.
County had no say-so in the schedule. That was 100% entirely the FAA and the contractor. Oconee County could not have any say-so. When we got the date for the bid opening requirement, all of us shrugged a little bit. We considered contacting the FAA. But remember, we had been told previously that we were ineligible for these grant funds, and it was only by sheer luck and grace that we did receive these funds and the hard work of our staff to continue to push the FAA for these improvements. But the timeline was not up to Oconee County Council, administration, or staff.
Any other discussion? All in favor? Aye. All opposed?
Aye.
That is 3-1.
First reading of the following ordinances. Ordinance 2022-20. An ordinance authorizing the conversion of that certain fee agreement between Oconee County, South Carolina, South Carolina County. Yes.
The second reading, 22-18.
I skipped one. Thank you. It's all right. I already crossed it out. Second reading of the following ordinance. Ordinance 2022-18. An ordinance authorizing the conveyance of certain improved real property consisting of approximately 2.83 acres to Tri-County Technical College, which property was initially developed as the Quick Jobs Development Center under a community development block grant and other matters related thereto. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
That is 4-0.
Okay, now first reading the following ordinances. Ordinance 2022-20, an ordinance authorizing the conversion of that certain fee agreement between Oconee County, South Carolina, and Casto Oconee LLC, dated as of June 2nd, 2015, to a public infrastructure reimbursement agreement between the county, Casto Oconee LLC, and Casto Oconee II LLC, authorizing the execution and delivery thereof and other matters related thereto. Is a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
That is 4-0.
Ordinance 2022-21, an ordinance to supplement ordinance 2021-14, which appropriated and authorized the expenditure of $2 million of local coronavirus fiscal recovery funding received by Oconee County under the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021, ARPA, for purposes of the Salem Water Infrastructure Project by appropriating and authorizing the expenditure of an additional $550,000 for the project. So the total appropriation expenditure authorization for the project will now total $2,550,000 and other matters related thereto. Is there a motion to approve?
Moved. Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
That is 4-0.
First and final reading of the following resolutions. Resolution 2022-14, a resolution expressing Oconee County Council support for the application or applications of Bell South Telecommunications LLC, doing business as AT&T, to the South Carolina Office of Regulatory Staff per a competitive application process for a grant or grants from the American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA program, to make high-speed broadband service available via fiber optic infrastructure to specified priority areas of Oconee County to address the digital divide. Is there a motion to approve? Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
That is 4-0.
Resolution 2022-15, a resolution establishing the Oconee County Task Force on Agriculture. Is there a motion to approve?
Second.
Any discussion?
Mr. Chair, just, this is something that I brought up, I guess, last council meeting. Sorry, it was kind of long-winded when I brought it up. But it is something that I think is urgent for this task force, to create a task force to consider different options, not to limit farmers' rights to sell their property, but to look at the problem and really analyze it with an open mind and see what other communities have done in addressing the loss of farmland, address the loss of farmland, and trying to, make sure that we continue to have that access in the county. I think it's pretty clear from the past 2 years how important it is to support local agriculture as we see our food prices going up at a much higher rate than the wages. And so I don't know if there's an end in sight to that inflation on food, but I would love to see our county become more independent on food production. And I think that's an important and aspirational goal for any county, especially one like Oconee that enjoys a great agriculture economy. But I just want to reiterate, this is not about restricting people's ability to sell their property or anything like that. It's addressing an issue that is going to continue to come as we see people move here and want to build things here, and it's certainly not to stop housing either. We need affordable housing, we need workforce housing, but there has to be some common ground where we can continue to encourage housing development and also hopefully protect our farmland, keep those legacies alive. So anyway, those are my comments, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Any other discussion? All in favor? Aye.
That is 4-0.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Take like a 2-minute break.
Sure.
Good idea.
Five, just
Is
do
there a
five. Make a
motion?
motion, 7:12. Seven.
All in favor? Aye.
Did I get a second on that?
Second.
We'll be back. I'm positive.
Do we need to wait on that? Is the motion to reconvene? All in favor? Aye.
Voted for it.
Discussion regarding action items. Discuss and take appropriate action on a potential intergovernmental agreement relating to expansion of wastewater services in the county. This item was formerly discussed as or is related to Project Harmony. Is Mr. John Kamey here? Don't believe so. Is any council member want to discuss this? Mr. Hart, do you want to discuss it?
Yes, sir, I'll make a stab at it. There's $490 million that the state of South Carolina has for sewer treatment. We can apply for this, and I was in a meeting the other day to where there's, you can get $10 million the first go-around. And this is a once-in-a-lifetime thing. This doesn't come along very often. So this is something that we either need to be looking forward to and not looking back, because this will give the county the control of their destiny. And that's basically, we have that opportunity now to join with Anderson County and do that.
So, Mr. Hart, where would the proposed sewer treatment plant be located? Would it be located in Fairplay?
It's located near Fairplay. And I think it's several different sites that they picked out that it would be located.
Well, I wonder how the residents of Fairplay would feel about a sewer treatment plant located in their backyard treating Anderson County sewage. I remember that late Jerry Barnett once said in a public comment session that Oconee County taxpayers are not in the sewer business, and I agree with him. Any other comments? If not, we'll go to,
Mr. Chair.
yes, sir.
Ever since I've been on council, since 2014, June 2014, I've always supported getting sewer to the interstate. That's always been a priority of mine and the county council since I got there. Though it's not my district, and I certainly appreciate Mr. Hart pushing forward on that. And I think it's good that we continue to make sure that we're investing in speculative sewer down to the interstate. I remember a presentation I had asked Richard Blackwell to do. He produced a map showing approximately 90% of the industrial projects over a 10-year period located within, I don't remember, I think it's a 5-mile radius of I-85 or 385 or I-26 in the upstate. And so it's always been a priority to get sewer to our interstate and to serve that area. And it makes sense. That being said, and I'm not opposed to continuing with conversations with Anderson County regarding a potential joint sewer treatment facility, if that makes economic sense for Oconee County. But we have approximately $500 million in commercial and multifamily investment waiting on sewer along the 123 corridor. And I think we would be fools to continue forward, and I'm not opposed to applying for grant funding either. But I think that we need to prioritize serving birds in the hand with some of these projects along the 123 corridor rather than investing more money. And I don't have a problem investing a little bit of exploratory money, doing feasibility or whatever. But I don't think we need to be spending tens of millions of dollars pushing forward with sewer to ID5 and a potential joint regional sewer, a potential joint sewer treatment facility of Anderson County at this time, when we have existing projects begging for sewer so that they can invest in Oconee County and provide needed multifamily housing and other commercial assets here, and they're gonna pay Watson property tax that we know of. They're not speculative, they're live projects. So, that's sort of where I'm at on this, and I, certainly am open to other ideas, but I think that we need to focus on the birds in the hand rather than the ones in the bush right now. That's just where I'm at.
Any other discussion?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. I guess some concerns I have is, I understand Mr. Hart wanted the memorandum of understanding sent out to all council members, that was created by Mr. Kamey of Anderson County. And I believe, based on what y'all have said, y'all have had some meetings and stuff with Mr. Kamey, along with several members, and that's your right. But part of that memorandum of understanding that I didn't understand was a confidentiality agreement that was in there. But it seems to me, based on the reports that's been out there and some of the people that you had meetings with, that they pretty much, I don't understand why a confidentiality agreement would even be existent that Mr. Kamey wrote in there. So, and then I kind of look back to try to figure out exactly what the benefit of a project like that would be if it's the $50 million price tag was put out there today, and the maximum grant, as you stated, was $10 million. Where is the other money going to come from if we only get 10 million? So, and again, I'm for speculative sewer, but let me say this here: speculative sewer is not conservative government. Speculative sewer is put into place to to spur economic development down on the interstate. And obviously, I'm for it and have been for it, and it's been part of my strategic planning since I came on board. But if you're going back to a blank slate with the creation of an entire sewer plant, you're talking about bonds, you're talking about millage set forth, and I think one of the number one concerns that I've heard is we don't want to raise taxes, and not just I don't know how you fund this without setting some millage aside for a sewer plant. And everything I've seen across not just our state but other states, there's not a whole lot of money in sewer. What's the money is in the industrial and economic development, the housing projects, the student housing areas, and what Mr. Kane was bringing up, those student housing, that's not in my district, that's in District 5 out there. And the amount of taxes that those are bringing into that area is actually pretty astronomical for the footprint that they have. So, my question is, if we're trying to have this so-called conservative government, and, where's all the money gonna come from to fund the rest of the sewer? Like, what's your proposal to fund, I understand it was $21 million of Oconee and 29 to Anderson. Is that what y'all discussed in the meeting? Like, where's that money gonna come from?
Well, I think they'll be putting in for grants to get part of it, but you're talking about something that we're gonna be reaching down, not today, but we're looking 20 years ahead of time. That's what I am looking for, because it's gonna have to come. Mr. Aguilar can tell you that he's from Greenville, and they've got, I think it is 12 plants over there that treat sewer. Oconee County is gonna grow, and it's gonna need more sewer treatment plants. And this right here would just be another one. Sometime in the future, you may see one in Long Creek and up in Salem, in different little areas that it's gonna have to have sewer.
I've been told that we've got only using 60% of the capacity of our sewer treatment plant right now. Now, granted, repairs have been ignored for decades, but now it's time to pay the piper. And hopefully, the sewer commission can get the money from the ARP or ARPA funds from the state, the money that you're talking about, to repair the broken down sewer plant. But we got 40%, it's only 60% is being used, I believe, and 40% is not being used. So we got room to grow if we fix what we have. We gotta fix what we have.
And we can expand what we have. If we decide to fund it, it just seems to me to be interesting to go outside and just start from scratch. And to me, you get into a competition with Anderson, and again, I've said it before, get on the interstate after you pass Oconee, you tell me what land's better. Is the land on Oconee side's better, or the land on Anderson? Anderson looks a whole lot flatter. So, to me, I hear Anderson's gonna go with or without us. Well, if we put this money, whatever the match is on these other grants besides the $10 million, and we continue to expand sewer out to exit 4, out there and come off of it, unless I've been lied to by the Joint Regional Sewer Authority, they have plenty of space for that. So why wouldn't we spend the money in pipe, which is a dime on the dollar, versus building a plant?
Would you want a new car, or you want to take a second one and put, or like the sewer authority, and put $50 million in it, or would you rather have a new one for $50 million?
There is no way it would cost $50 million to.
Well, they've been estimating it. Ask the man sitting right back there, ask him.
If Chairman would, if he's willing to speak, Mr. Chairman.
Sure.
Talk about the plan, I'm willing to.
If you would state your name and your position, please.
I'm Chris Eliezer. I'm the Executive Director of the Oconee Joint Regional Sewer Authority.
So since I called him up, the concerns are the capacity. The concerns are the inability to expand, or the cost to expand a current plant. And y'all don't have the room for, I guess, our development out on 85. And I guess the other one that I heard is the metal ions. So, Mr. Chairman, if you'd like to kind of touch on those.
All right, you'll probably have to remind me as I go through, as I probably will forget some of the items I've been asked for. Mr. Elliott, you are correct that we do have plenty of capacity at the treatment facility. The way that it works is DHEC it's like a checkbook. So when a new large project comes and receives a permit, it goes against the treatment plant, whether it's ever built or not. So we have allocated about 4.7 million gallons of our 7.8 million gallons of capacity to either existing or to be built projects. About a month and a half ago, I sent a letter to DHEC to request to receive back some of that allocation that has been taken from us for the plant sizing, hopefully to get it back to around 3.5 to 4 million gallons or so. We feel we've been able to justify that through internal means and also using a consultant to help us make these calculations and put together a package to send to Columbia. So we average, I would guess, about 3 to 3.2 million gallons a day year-round per flow. Now that does include the infiltration and inflow that you probably have heard so much about that we're under a consent order for right now. So hopefully that will move forward. Once we hit 80%, we will have to begin the process of looking at expanding the plant. So 60% now, hit 80%, and we have to begin looking at either building a new treatment plant or expanding the existing one. But I do feel that we are a ways off from having to do that. Second item that I was asked about was the $50 million, I believe. $50 million that we presented back, I believe it was approved by my board last November, December, somewhere around that time frame, was for capital improvements across our entire system. So it was to replace existing pump stations, one of which is in the area that Mr. Kane mentioned between Clemson and Seneca that would open that area up. Currently was sitting back there reviewing a agreement with an engineering consulting firm to begin the design of that pump station. So that's one that's not associated with the treatment plant itself. There's a few other pump stations and gravity lines that we're in the process of looking at. We are currently under an agreement for the replacement of the Flat Rock pump station, which serves this building here, as a matter of fact, south of the city. When we had a consulting firm come in a little over a year ago and evaluate our treatment plant from top to bottom, they did it pro bono, spent about 3 days between themselves and a construction firm that builds treatment plants. They estimated that our need to rehabilitate our plant to get it back up to what it needs to be at the 7.8 million gallon per day level was in the neighborhood of, if I remember correctly, it was about $13 million, $13 to $17 million. So it was a far cry from $50 million. But if I may mention as well that I know the discussion, and this may be outside the scope of what I've been asked for, but a $50 million treatment plant that's going to be built, as I have heard up here today, you may be looking at that same amount or more in putting the pipes in the ground to get the water to the treatment plant. So $50 million treatment plant with no pipes going to it is fairly useless. The third item that I was asked about was in regards to metals, I believe. Was that what was? So it had been said that we have limitations to our facility for certain industries. I think that's been discussed at length before. And while to an extent that is somewhat true, I went this afternoon and I had our pre-treatment coordinator provide me with some information in preparation for attending tonight. And the only metal we currently are out of allocating is silver. And the cadmium, we have some left that we can allocate to industry. Those are the only two metals that we have that are below, where we have below 60% of our ability to dole that out. Now, our treatment plant is a biological process treatment plant, which nearly every public utility in the state of South Carolina will have. I've tried to do some research since my meeting last week, and I believe Mr. Hart attended our meeting to find out if there were any publicly owned and operated physical chemical treatment plants in the state of South Carolina. And the difference between the type of plant that we have and all the other plants across the state versus a physical chemical plant is that we're designed primarily to treat domestic strength wastewater, what would come from the typical house or a restaurant or some, a commercial establishment like that. Industries across the state are going to be categorized as a pre-treatment facility, whether they have to have it or not if they hit certain criteria. We have 19 permitted industries in the state, in the county, that discharge to us, and I believe 15 to 17% of those currently have, 15 to 17 of those 19 have a on-site physical chemical process or some type of permitted treatment process to remove the contaminants that our treatment plant was not designed to handle, to be able to discharge to us so that we can process it, not kill off the treatment plant that we have, which is bacteria, that biological process, and not cause any harm to the stream, which keeps us in compliance with our federal and state permit. So I'm hoping that may have answered the questions. Was there any other questions that I may have missed or any follow-ups to what I've stated?
Well, I've got one question. So
Sir.
the $10 million that Mr. Hart's referring to of the state ARPA money, will you be applying for that also?
Yes, so we're going to apply for it, and we're going to apply for it specifically to items that are in our consent order. So these were items that were identified after we had found that capital improvement plan, or the board had approved that capital improvement plan. But there's some areas of overlap in there as well. So it was identified that, say, the Flat Rock pump station needed to be replaced. Well, we're going to use, hopefully receive the funding to replace that station. And we've got, I think, 3 general projects that we will be applying for that up to $10 million to do rehabilitation and repair on existing facilities. I should also mention too, while I'm thinking about it, that I know it's been a dream for many, many years, decades, as a matter of fact, to get sewer down to I-85. And on August 2nd of this month, this year, we received word from RIA that they have approved for us to go out to bid. Now, that we're still waiting on approval from the EDA, US EDA. They're still researching and reviewing our submittal packet, so we're hoping to hear anytime soon. Now, once that happens, we'll be green-lighted to put together the bid documents and put that out there to bid. So we've never been as close here as we are right now to making this a reality. I know people still don't believe that it's going to happen because they've heard it for so many years, but we are right there at that threshold.
We're looking forward to groundbreaking.
I am as well. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yes. I don't have any few, Chris. I just want this to be added to the minutes, this MOU.
Sure. Any other questions?
Mr. Elliott, how many existing manufacturing facilities do y'all provide wastewater treatment to the plant?
We permit, as I said, we have 19 that we permit. As far as, what may be considered an industrial site may not be one that we have to permit. For example, Horton is one that is considered an industry, but because of the nature of what they do and produce there, they're not required to be permitted by us. So, they're fine. They still have to comply, that they still fall under our sewer use regulation, but so does every house, individual residential house, fall under our regulation as well. So of those 19 that we have, they're the ones that fall under some specific category that requires them to be permitted by us. And then even within those permits, you have various levels to which they have to comply.
So obviously, it's important for our existing industry that y'all keep that plant open. Don't come asking the county for money.
And if I may too, I didn't even think about this either, but if DHEC does approve that reduction in our allocated capacity to the treatment plant, that will free up some of those additional pollutants that I have on our list that we will be able to accept. So even things like silver, that is a very small level that we can even accept for silver, in the range of less than 0.2 pounds per day, I believe, based on what we have. But silver apparently is not something that we commonly encounter, because we do have facilities in the county that do use and discharge silver from whatever process they may have. So even if we receive some of that capacity back, then we very well likely will be able to have more space to allocate to these facilities to allow for continued growth. And I should say too that the industries that are permitted that we have to account for in here, that have these parameters in their permit, that's assuming they're discharging at 100% of their permitted amount, which we have to accommodate because they very well could do that. But as a whole, the industries are only discharging about 30% of their permitted amount to us per day. So there's a substantial amount, 70% on average of the permitted facilities, that aren't discharging any flow at all, but we're having to still account for that in what we allocate out to them. We've made an attempt over the last year or so to try to recoup or recapture some of that process flow from the industries, but we haven't had any takers today because I believe they realize if they needed that additional flow in the future, it would be more expensive for them to go and regain that capacity for themselves.
So if we had an industry that was coming here with a discharge, more than likely we would be able to accept them through the sewer authority?
I would say, in most cases, absolutely, I think that would be the case. Now, as I mentioned earlier, that these facilities, any type of plant that would come here, for the most part, a lot of them are going to have to install a pre-treatment device anyways, a process or a number of processes to be able to get that wastewater strength down to that domestic strength that we are required to have for our biological treatment process. So it's just a matter of them being able to install the equipment as well to get it down to the level that it's not going to harm the collection system and is not going to harm the treatment plant or the environment or our staff. That's the intent of having a pre-treatment program.
Growing up in West Union, there was a stream that was polluted by an industry that they had to really work through, and pretty much if you grew up down that area and had a well, everybody in Alzole City, the coal and things like this, it was different than the metal ions. But these pre-treatment facilities that came along, the whole goal of this is to lessen their liability into what they're releasing out there. So there's a lot of things in place that when they're thinking about what they're releasing, their goal is to release safe water to you, safe treatment water to you, for that reason. So it doesn't matter if it's Oconee County or Greenville County or wherever, there's all these pre-treatment facilities. So there was just some conflicting information out there that nobody can.
Yes, so that's
a metal ion plant in Oconee County.
That's correct. And you mentioned in Greenville County, they've got a pre-treatment department full of staff. We have one dedicated staff that's able to oversee what we need to do here. They're covering an entire county full of the industries they have. They also are heavily involved in the restaurant business with the PCB issues they had several years ago. So their responsibilities are greater, but even the facilities up there that discharge to them are going to have a device to get their wastewater concentration down to that same level of domestic water that we would have to have at our facility.
One last thing I'll touch on for the ARPA funding. In the research that I've done on it, it's very difficult to do compounding grants on top of some of these other ones until you get, we're faced with the same thing out there for the exits 1 and 2, that we can't get a grant for exit 4 until that one's finished. So, I'm all for looking at funding opportunities that are coming from money that we have worked to cut over the years and save over the years through economic development and fund balance to possibly continue that process to exit 4. But it's a false sense to say that we've got one grant application out there now, we'll just get other grants on top of it. You have to have either bond funding or you have to have some kind of dollar figure to match these grants or to piece together. So it's not, if grants paid 100% of a project this style, you'd have, instead of 5 plants, you'd have 50 plants in a specific area. So to me, it seems like y'all are meeting the demands. I know there's some things going on within the organization that I wish were better, but to me, we've had conversations and I've expressed some things that I'm dissatisfied with, and you've cleared some of those things up. So, as we continue to move forward and get that sewer in the ground, that'll answer those questions that it's never going to happen. So when it does, your statement that day is it happened. So, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other discussion? Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Let's move on, man.
So what was Mr. R trying to put into the minutes?
MOU.
MOU, MOU.
And where does it come from?
It comes from Anderson County.
It comes directly from Anderson County administration?
Yes, it did. Ms. Brock was the one that sent it to me.
Did it come from Anderson County administration?
Mr. Chairman, if I may, Mr. John Kane has sent the MOU to me on June 23rd, 2022.
I don't mind putting it in there, but I'd like to see an authorization from his council to create a brain of understanding between Oconee County and Anderson County, Mr. Chairman.
So can you get the administration over there to do that, Mr. Hart?
Well, they voted on it. Mr. Mangrum talked with the lady, the clerk of court, and he can tell you more about it. Did they not approve it?
Well, I think the county administrator should be communicating with the county administrator.
I'd be happy to reach out, Mr. Chairman, to Mr. Burns.
Okay. Air Traffic Control Services, Department Airport, amount to be determined. Staff recommendation that council, 1, approve the award as needed air traffic control services to Air Boss Inc. of Belmont, North Carolina. 2, authorize the county administrator to execute the contract documents and to renew this contract for up to 4 one-year terms as long as the amount does not exceed the amount budgeted for temporary air traffic control and services provided as satisfactory. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
Yes, sir. So just so we're clear, if we do not have a home game, there will not be a cost. So for the social media goes on a rampage on this stuff, if we're not open for this season, there won't be a cost this season, and that money will not be spent. Is that correct, Ms. Brock?
That is correct, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
The vote is 4-0.
Change order number 1, PO 53694, Thomas Hutton, Department, Park Recreation and Tourism, engineering services for Seneca Creek Access Area. Original PO amount, $103,390. Change order, $13,500. PO total, $116,890. Procurement was approved by council on fiscal year 2022-23 budget process. The staff's recommendation that council, 1, approve change order number 1 to PO number 53694 in the amount of $13,500. Purchase order total $116,890 to Thomas and Hutton for additional engineering services for Seneca Creek access. 2, authorize county administrator to sign and execute the change order. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
The vote is 4-0.
2021 Bell Bell 30E articulated haul truck, Department Rock Quarry, amount $309,000. Procurement was approved by council on fiscal year 2022-23 budget process. Budget $309,000, project cost $309,000, balance 0. The staff's recommendation that council, 1, approve the purchase of the 2021 Bell B3030E articulating haul truck from National Equipment Dealers doing business as May/RHI of Columbia, South Carolina, in the amount of $309,000. 2, approve the trade-in for the 1998 Terex articulating haul truck. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
The vote is 4-0.
14 Chevrolet Tahoe PPV responders, Department Sheriff's Office, amount $558,972. Funds were appropriated for this procurement by council in fiscal year 2021-22 and 2022-23 budget processes. Budget $611,354. Project cost $558,972. Balance $52,382. It's staff recommendation that council approve the purchase of 14 Chevrolet Tahoe Police Pursuit SUVs from Love Chevrolet of Columbia, South Carolina, in the amount of $558,972. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Vote is 4-0.
Council committee reports. Law enforcement, public safety, health, welfare. Mr. Davis.
Law enforcement public safety met July 19, 2022. Discussion potential revisions to animal control ordinance brought forth by the Oconee County Sheriff's Office. Lieutenant Crumpton and Sergeant Neighbors brought up the discussion, talking about abandoned animals, adequate shelter for animals, catch and release programs, proper tethering of animals, and violation notice. A motion was passed and direct the county attorney to compare animal control ordinance to SC state law, as well as make directed changes as discussed in the meeting. Upon completion of these tasks, bring this subject back to law enforcement, public safety, and health and welfare committee. Let's see, county homeless meeting follow-up. Lieutenant Crumpton addressed the committee with a brief overview of the county homeless meeting. Motion was made and passed to compose a resolution supporting safe shelter for all Oconee County citizens. Next law enforcement meeting is Tuesday, September 20th, 4:30 p.m. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Sure. Transportation, Mr. Hart.
Yes, sir. We had the transportation committee meeting, July the 19th, 2022. The first thing on the agenda was the proposed abandonment of Thornburg Road and Dinky Line Road. This presentation was made by Mr. Kyle Reed of the Bridge and Road Departments. And as you can see, we still got this up in the air right now because we're waiting for something else to come down next meeting. The next was a proposed changing of the sidewalks to where they could put put sidewalks on the right of way of the county. Mr. Root is working out something that's supposed to go to the planning commission to be done on that. And the last thing on there was the revision of the private road standards by eliminating all the right of way of the private roads. And the planning department, Mr. Mike Johnson, gave a presentation on that, and there was we voted to pass it on, but Mr. Reed and the planning department are going to get together and see what kind of compromise they can work on it. Our next transportation committee meeting will be Tuesday, September the 20th, 2022 at 4:30.
Thank you. Board and commission appointments. Arts and Historical Commission, one at-large seat, no questionnaires on file for this seat. Conservation Bank Board, District 4 seat, no questionnaires on file for this seat. One at-large seat, no questionnaires on file for this seat. Due to the amendment to the agenda, the Planning Commission, District 1 seat, one questionnaire on file for this seat. I nominate Mrs. Teresa Spicer.
Second.
All in favor?
Vote is 4-0.
Council will go in executive session for the following purposes. Discuss contractual matter related to pending land acquisition near airport. 2, discussion regarding economic development matter, Project Bear. Is there a motion to go into executive session?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
4-0.
motion to go out of executive session?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. No action was taken in executive session. Mr. Root?
All right, Mr. Chairman, thank you. In relation to the executive session items, first item number 1, discuss contractual matter related to pending land acquisition near airport. Need a motion to direct staff to proceed with the land acquisition as discussed.
So moved.
Second. All in favor? Aye.
Vote 4-0.
In relation to the second matter, Project Bear, need a motion to direct county staff to proceed with easement negotiations as discussed.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Is there a motion to go, excuse me, is there a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion, we are adjourned.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.